The sons of God in the Bible are mentioned in Genesis chapter 6. Um, if you go back to Genesis chapter 4, it mentions the birth of the children of Cain, who eventually became very powerful and knowledgeable. They became the what we would call the demigods. They became the sons of God. Um, this all makes perfect sense, and it all lines up with Nordic and Greek mythology. Norse and Greek mythology is the context of Norse and Greek mythology is in the pages of the Bible. The entire story of the Bible in Genesis is that story. The initial background of that story is in the pages of the Bible. The sons of God coming into the daughters of men, as it calls them, the men of Sham, or the men of Name, the men of I believe shamanism, the men of the original shamanistic ancestors of these tribes of Cain. Um, you have Cain. He goes east and builds the city of Unok for his son, which is no doubt a ziggurat city, an Asgard, which is the meaning of ziggurat, or city of truth, Asha Kiryat in Hebrew, or Asgard, which is a temple, a guarded temple or fortress. These were like step pyramids, a lot of times. The first Asgard is built by Khan himself for his son Unok, and then their descendants later become what we know as the immortals, the Cain, Enoch, Irad, Mehujael, Methusael, and Lamech. That would be in the Greek mythology: Chaos, Erebus, Ether, Uranus, Kronos, and Zeus. And then Zeus gives birth to three sons: Hermes, Apollo, and Hephaestus. And in the Bible, it's Yapalo, Upalo, and Tubal Khan. Um, all are designated as gods of metallurgy and smithing, the developers of the hammer, the saw, different metallurgical implements, things that were regarded as coming down from the gods. This is that story and that origin of what we would later call what we call now Norse mythology. Um, Loki. Um, you have Buri, Bor, Odin, and Thor. So that would be um, Irad, Methusael, and Lamech. So you have the four lineages, um, and in Greek mythology, of course, Uranus, Kronos, Zeus, and his children, which later became the Olympians. So the Uranus and Gaia would be the Anunnaki, the father of the parents of the Anunnaki in the Sumerian mythology. So even in the Sumerian mythology, these same demigods come up, just in different forms and different names, but they're all the same. They're all the same demigods. In fact, this mythology book covers mythology from all around the world, and you find some of the same stories of the same exact gods in Pacific cultures, Asian culture, Indian culture, some African cultures, and most European culture. So you can literally look at war gods and trickster gods and agricultural gods all around the world who carry the same exact motif, the same stories, the same legends, because it all stems from the pages of the Bible. It all stems from this same original story. The same imprint is there on everybody around the world for that reason. Um, it's undeniable. The Bible story is the origin of Norse mythology and Greek legend and Norse legend. here in Genesis chapter 4, the children of Cain and their descendants. um, Lamech, of course, being Thor, Methusael being Odin. So Odin lived in the Asgard in the east, it says in Norse mythology. Before the war happened, the Titanomachy, the war between Kronos and the other demigods, the Titans. Um, and then Odin, there was a golden age where Odin rules, and then Odin leaves the throne of Asgard, leaves the heaven, and he goes to the west. He travels to the west to roam the earth. So you have a story of uh, this wanderer losing his home, his place in time and history, and wandering. And um, I believe that character, Methusael in the Bible, or Odin in Norse mythology, uh, and Kronos in Greek mythology, Saturn in Roman mythology. They all have the same exact designation in position in the pantheon. I believe that represents um, the person of Melchizedek. Melchizedek, uh, just like Kronos, is a god of eternal time, a wanderer, a priest of time, a wanderer. Odin is a wanderer as well. Odin leaves Asgard as a wanderer, as a philosopher, as a spiritual um, person, spiritual seeker. Odin then receives immortality. Odin goes to the tree of Mimir. He hangs on the tree of Mamre or Mimir. Um, and this tree may be also the tree that's mentioned in the Bible as the oaks of Mamre, where Abraham also goes to later. And Abraham meets Jehovah at the trees of Mamre. So again, this is deeply interconnected, where he meets Melchizedek in Salem, and then they travel south to fight the Battle of the Five Kings. This is where he goes to the Oaks of Mamre. He goes to the Well of Mamre. This is in theory also Mimir, the Well of Mimir and the Oaks of Mimir, where Odin hung on the tree and sacrificed himself, receiving immortality, entering into the spiritual realm eternally. Odin then cast his eye into the well where the Romans deeply interconnected Salem, particularly Salem and the city of Salem, with Kronos. With El Elyon was associated with the priest Kronos. So again, you have the correlation there. The Romans actually believed that El Elyon was the god of all time and eternity, and Kronos was the priest. So Kronos would be Melchizedek, even according to the Romans. Kronos also was, cut or castrated or something of that nature. That they believe that might have been the association with the cutting of the skin. And that's when Abraham received that instruction when he went to Salem, when he went to that place. So it is there are interesting parallels here throughout the entire story. In the shamanistic mythology of Siberia and Asia, that would be Odin, which would mean Lord of Time. Od is the god of time. His son Tangre, or Tinre, is Thor, the god of the hammer. Tangre carries the hammer and holds up the heavens. So this is also this would be related to the god of justice, Zeus and Thor. Odin is I believe also Aten, the Egyptian representation of the same exact concept. Aten also was Ra, the single eye. So you have where Odin took out his eye. Odin took out his eye. He had one eye that was in the spiritual and the metaphysical, that he cast into the well, representing becoming one with eternity, seeing all things. He takes out that eye from the physical and he's placing it into the spiritual, into the immortal, into the pool, into the well of eternity. And I looked into this because I wanted to know what went on at that well um, in Roman and Greek times. And there were people would go to this well, the same well, the well of Mamre, the well that's mentioned by when Jesus resurrected, and he came to the well and appeared at the well, and they said they were praying at the well because people would pray at the well for the gods to come down and grant them blessings. They believed that the gods would give them favor if they went to this well and made wishes. They would put coins in the well, hoping that the gods would look upon them. I believe this is associated with the eye of Ra, the eye of Aten, the eye of Odin. The Odinic, the beliefs in Odin then traveled through the seafarers, the Phoenicians, into Europe, into Norway, into throughout the world. So the beliefs were initially in one place, perhaps in northern Egypt and that general region, Phoenicia. So that is the origin of Aten, Kronos, Aten Ra, the single eye. Probably ideas around surrounding the all-seeing eye, which represents omnipresence, a God that is omnipresent, can see all things. So that would be also correlated with the all-seeing eye. No doubt, all stemming from that same story, that same initial story and event in that took place during the biblical stories, during the biblical time. Melchizedek could have been granted by God to forgiveness for being in the lineage of Cain, some type of forgiveness. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It says that the fallen ones that were chained were forgiven by Jesus himself. So again, Jesus went into the lower world, forgave all of the fallen spirits and fallen angels from the past, gave them the opportunity to receive salvation. So it could be that could it be that Jesus passing through time interacted with Melchizedek, bringing him into an understanding of eternity at that moment? Things happening over time. I think that's very possible. That seems to be what's described in the Bible, that Jesus becomes one. Jesus merges with eternity, just as Melchizedek once did. That it says Jesus is a priest in the order of Melchizedek. So it could be that Odin made his way into the eternal realm. At that moment when he, it says he took out his eye and cast it into the well, and perhaps cried out to God and to El Elyon, the all-knowing God, the Most High God, and was chosen by God for that purpose. And there was many parallels to this in the story itself. And then Odin hung on the tree, it says he took no bread or wine. No bread or wine. Doesn't that sound similar? He denied himself bread and wine during that time. And isn't that interesting that Melchizedek carries bread and wine? Jesus also brought the priesthood of Melchizedek, which also used the bread and wine. So indulging in bread and wine for the one seeking salvation from the abstaining from bread and wine during the crucifixion. So it's a transfer of salvation for those being saved.